So there are 5 parts to this homework, and the first part is 6.2, data handling applications. What is what are data handling applications? Basically, that means storing your data in a computer instead of manually storing it. And in this case, we are asked to describe the range of data handling applications. Examples are surveys, addresses, clubs, and society records. Now, there are several advantages to storing your data in a computer, and I'll go over them in a second. But firstly, um, yeah, these are the reasons why you should store your data in a computer. Well, computers are incredibly reliable if the files are not corrupted or you have a faulty hard drive or any storage device. And also, they can be organized or displayed in multiple ways. You can print it, you can organize it, and whatever liking you like, as long as it's in the system. And if you're looking for a particular file, there's usually a search button in every system, which greatly reduces time searching for the object and simplifies um, your search rather than going to each and every folder and searching for the file. Also, um, backups can easily be made by copying the file and putting it in another drive or another folder. And also, backups are useful in case anything happens to the original file. In case you mess it up or it gets corrupted or anything, you have a backup, so it's fine. And finally, and the most important part, it is if you absolutely have a lot of storage, if you have a lot of data to store, it is more logical to put it in a computer where you can put it in a solid state drive or hard drive because it is so much smaller than buying a ton of um, cabinets and like desks to actually um, store things such as paper, where because you need to store large amounts of paper in a cabinet and you need to buy a lot of cabinets. But if you, for example, convert it to a Word file, the file isn't so large, and so you can store it into a hard drive. And the uses of these things are like school reports. School reports can be done in computers because the um, data is stored in a computer. And for example, if you want to look for a specific student's grades, you can just use the search button instead of actually going. If you have stored it manually, you'd have need to go through each cabinet looking for the person. And it's also effective in libraries and school libraries. If you're looking for a specific book, you can just go, search it up in the search button, and um, it'll take you to the book instead of actually looking for the book manually. And this is also particularly useful in libraries where there are a lot of things to store, book data and everything, like to keep it organized. It's easier to store it in a computer. Now, second point, 6.5 modeling applications. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages of using computer-controlled systems rather than humans. Basically, what this means is using machinery and like machinery that has been programmed by computers or computer-controlled systems in general on things such as building cars. Now, the nowadays cars, when they are manufactured, they are made by robotics and machinery, which has been programmed to do a certain thing. And in this particular case, is building cars. Now, the advantages of this is taking in consideration the car case study. So, example, if I have a car factory, I might consider using machinery, and these are the advantages of machinery compared to humans. Machinery doesn't get tired, and they don't get sleepy, and they don't need lunch breaks or dinner breaks, and they don't complain. And also, machinery are almost always more precise because they're programmed to do one thing and one thing only. And which means the outcome of the products will be more consistent and usually more accurate. which is an important part of any business because you don't want one product to be faulty and the other one to be absolutely perfect. But the disadvantages of machines are that they, when you're starting up a business or when you're starting to invest in a business and you're trying to invest in machinery, they're incredibly expensive. Um, Also, if it gets broken or anything happens to it, it can be expensive to repair it, and in general, it is quite darn expensive to keep it in working order. And um, you might not have the funds to actually um, purchase machinery in your first year of starting up a business. But however, it is usually almost always more cost efficient in the long term because you don't have to give it breaks or anything, and it's just a more consistent way of producing things. On to the next case study is the 6.12 expert systems. Describe how an expert system is used to suggest diagnosis. In this particular case, I'll be using a medical diagnosis. And so medical diagnosis uses expert systems. An expert system consists of three main things, or parts, you can say. The first part is the user interface. It's the part where users like me and you, who are not experts in the field, it's where we can navigate and put in the symptoms or the causes or anything. And usually the interface is easily navigable and also it's easy to use. So more people can use it and it's not too complicated to use. Now the second part is the interface engine. Interface engine. It is kind of the middleman between the expert and the user because it processes the symptoms that the user has put in and it transfers it to the expert. And also on its way back, the expert's answers is simplified and put in a more generic and easily understandable way to understand so the user has no problem in understanding. But yeah, and the last part is the actual expert, which is called the um, knowledge base. A knowledge base is basically an expert who gives the prediction or conclusion of a certain diagnosis or anything really based on the symptoms and based on the symptoms the user has put in. And you don't expect it to be perfect, but usually the expert has a PhD or master's or he's experienced in the field. So that's how expert systems work. So the system is sorry. So the answer from the expert is transferred back to the interface engine where it is made more simple, and then the user gets the um, gets the answer to the symptoms. Now our last two case studies are 6.4 recognition systems. Describe how RFID and RF technology is used in a range of applications. Examples are tracking stock, passports, automobiles, contactless payment. RFID stands for Radio Frequency Identification Systems, and RF is Radio Frequency Technology. These systems are used in various applications such as passports. Your passport, if it's relatively new or if you live in a country such as the United States or Australia or United Kingdom, you will usually have a RFID tag in front of the passport. Um, this tag is absolutely tiny, but it stores your data. And how this works is um, when you scan your passport against an RFID scanner, your the RFID scanner will then ask for authentication, which is usually in the form of a fingerprint, an iris scan, or usually just a PIN. Now, the authentication system will verify whether it is actually your passport or not based on the data stored in the RFID. So if your fingerprint that you just scanned matches the one um, on your RFID, then you will be you will be verified. And another application of RFIDs are credit cards. Credit cards and debit cards have RFID scanners, have RFID tags in them, which contains the data of the user, which has the card. And this will result in less human contact because the process of payment is made so much easier and more efficient than actually having a human cashier there, giving it to your giving it to the giving it to the cashier and having the cashier scan it. You can actually scan it yourself in some outlets. And finally, 6.5, monitoring and tracking systems. Describe how a workforce or a member of the public can be monitored or logged. Now, this is used in some businesses. I'll give a case study. If you have a business and of course you hire employees, right? But if your business has a secret, for example, a secret supplier, which gives you a large advantage over competitors, and you want your employees to keep it a secret, you might consider monitoring or tracking your employees because um, it's not only that, because monitoring and tracking systems are also used for um, generally observing the performance of the employee. So there are multiple ways to do this, but firstly, it's telephone tapping. Basically, you can record the conversations your of your employees, the conversation that your employees has, and also the duration of the call, the number directed, so you can track if the employee has been leaking secrets or whatnot. Second thing is video surveillance. It's basically really straightforward. You have a camera on the room, and um, the camera's job is to observe the camera captures your employees, what he or she does in the workstation, and then an external person who monitors your employee, either live or post-recorded. If it's a post-recorded clip, they make a judgment on how well your employee is performing based on the guidelines or anything that guidelines or like expectations you gave to the external person. He will judge the performance of your employee. And why this is such a popular method is that it's not very intrusive, but also it gives an unbiased opinion because your manager might not a manager might not like an employee, and a manager might want the employee fired. So the manager gives a biased opinion of the employee's performance, right? And finally and lastly, um, you have location monitoring. It's basically the most straightforward thing. It's mostly done in cell phones. So um, usually some businesses give cell phones to their employees, and that cell phone is usually tracked. So the business knows where the employee has been, or if the employee has been messing around or anything. So that is everything. I'll link the sources I got the information from in the description down below. And thanks for watching.